my $1 million challenge. I have a sponsored $1 million challenge for anyone around the world who can show that the afterlife evidence is not valid. Here is this. Look at this very, very carefully to those potential applicants who want to apply for the $1 million challenge. There it is. Now, I have been investigating the afterlife for 20 years using scientific method. And I've put 22 different areas of afterlife evidence on my website. And to date, 8 years later, nobody, no one, no scientist, no physicist, no biologist, no skeptical debunker has been able to show why the evidence is not valid. Now, the evidence I have is objective, repeatable, and empirical. Right? And in professional debates, when evidence is not rebutted, then it remains valid. Translated, this means there is an afterlife, because the motion is that there is an afterlife. Now, my website and my challenge has been given a lot of publicity over the last 8 years. It's gone over to at least 150 countries around the world. And it's gone over to the United States with Larry King Live and Sylvia Brown discussing it, and Time Warner and different radio stations. And it's gone to the UK, Europe, Asia, even in Australia, and even in Russia. So much so, I have this book in Russian being sold in Russian bookshops today about the evidence for the afterlife. And if you watch the bottom of this cover page very carefully, you can see $1 million being offered to Russian scientists and the debunkers and the empiricists, anyone who could show that the afterlife evidence I have is not valid. That so far has not been done. Now, the conditions for the applicant to have a look at will be on my website, and I'll give you the URL of my website at the end of this clip. Incidentally, this is my book, The Evidence for the Afterlife. A lawyer presents the case for the afterlife. Right? You can access this book on my website at no cost to you. Free, no charge. Right? Now, I had to add 3 other conditions to the standard conditions. This is because I'm dealing with a lot of applicants, and to save time and money and effort, I had to include, the first one is that the applicant has to know something about scientific method. This is because the evidence is highly technical. Secondly, the applicant has to know something about the admissibility of evidence, the differences between objective evidence, subjective evidence, and anecdotal evidence. Thirdly, the applicant has been identified as a true investigator of these kinds of matters in the afterlife evidence. I received thousands of emails, and have received thousands of emails over the last 8 years. Nearly all of them support the afterlife investigations and research I do. But of course, there are a few skeptics. But skeptics come in the open-minded and closed-minded. The open-minded skeptics, I'm an open-minded skeptic. But these open-minded skeptics, at least they investigate. And nearly all of them, once they investigate all the evidence, they accept the evidence. And they join us. And then you have the closed-minded skeptics, those who will not investigate the evidence for the afterlife. They instead investigate things like Bigfoot doesn't exist, or orbs don't exist, and so on. But that's okay. In time, guaranteed, sooner or later they will have no choice but to accept the evidence for the afterlife. And remember what I said earlier, any evidence which has not been rebutted remains valid. Translated, there is an afterlife. Oh, I mustn't forget the skeptical dummies. These are the ones who experience enormous frustrations in not being able to rebut the evidence. So, because they're either not very bright or they don't know what to do, what do they do in their sheer frustration? They try to throw mud at their source of frustration and anxiety. Some even try to deface websites. Right? Others even use fifth-rate comical one-liners to try to be funny, but of course they're not. But they're not important. But if you have the motivation, if you have the courage, if you have the stomach for this $1 million challenge, then go ahead, make my day. This is Victor Zammit. But before you go, let me remind you, I have other YouTubes for you. These YouTubes are about my afterlife evidence. Until next time, this is Victor Zammit.